welcome everybody to our presentation about continuing services through the pandemic, employment programming and services in St. John, New Brunswick. My name is Marika Gertz and I'm the curriculum developer for the YMCA Newcomer Connections. And I'm here today with my colleagues, Olive Ozoemena, she's our manager of program delivery, Sue Hemmings, who is our employment training team lead, and Daniel Rito, who is our research coordinator. And I just wanted to let you know as well that this PowerPoint is available on the platform and the recording will be available in about 2 weeks. So St. John is the only census metropolitan area in Canada to decline in population between 2011 and 2016. So the CMA is comprised of the city of St. John, Granby Westfield, Rothesay, Quispamsis, and Hampton. And you see a little slide, a picture of the province right here, where St. John is indicated. The population of St. John increased modestly with only 0.4% in 2018. And the number of people between the ages of 15 and 29 rose for the first time in 7 years. This growth was due to a boost in immigrants and non-permanent residents, and nearly 1,000 newcomers were added to the population of the Greater St. John area in 2018. New Brunswick's population is among the oldest in Canada, with a median age of 45.9 versus 40.8 for Canada. The prediction is that between 2018 and 2027, there will be about 120,000 job openings in our area, with only 76,000 graduates from public schools. So there's a huge difference, which means we need more people. So a little bit about the Y. The Y is a registered charity dedicated to strengthening the foundations of our community. We've been a part of the Y Canada Federation for 165 years. In the St. John area, we currently have 17 locations across the region. The services we offer at these locations vary from health, membership and recreation, to childcare, which includes after school and summer day camps. And finally, about 25 years ago, we started providing services to newcomers of the area through our Newcomer Connections office. Newcomer Connections offers a diverse range of programs and services to newly arrived immigrants, which include LINK, English language classes, employment readiness programs, Canadian cultural orientation, immigrant settlement and refugee settlement assistance, and school readiness programs. So we offer a broad range for all kinds of people. With a multilingual team of more than 50 staff representing 11 countries, we make every effort to provide services in client-centric manner that is inclusive and respectful of the rights, dignity, and diversity of all newcomers to Canada. We offer a wide variety of employment readiness programs for a broad range of sectors and at different language levels. And you see some examples on this slide here. We facilitate 1-hour information sessions and workshops, but also part-time training, which lasts from 1 to 3 weeks. And that helps clients get ready for a specific certificate, such as getting food safety or driving lessons. We also offer full-time sector-specific employment language training, which we call SELT, S-S-E-L-T. And that is 8 to 10 weeks long. And we offer that for sectors such as retail and healthcare. And you see the picture here of sales and customer service. Through partnerships with community organizations and the province, we are also able to offer programs that last between 4 and 8 months, and that include workplace essential skills training and a work placement, for example, truck driving. If you're interested in more details about our programs, I would like to refer you to the workshop that was offered a few weeks ago. And the title of the workshop is Newcomer Employment Initiatives at a Local Level, Different Initiatives to Support Newcomers in St. John, New Brunswick. If you have any questions with regards to today's presentation, please feel free to leave some comments or questions in the Q&A chat, and we will address those at the end of our presentation. So I'll tell a little bit more about curriculum development because that's my role. And so as you've seen, we offer many different employment training programs for newcomers. The decision which programs to offer is based on feedback that we get from employers, information from settlement counselors, links instructors, and also, very important, the newcomers themselves. So after we've identified a gap, it is my job as curriculum developer to research what we need to teach in our program to fill that gap. As a curriculum developer, I look at job descriptions and requirements like on JobBank and LinkedIn and other platforms. I look at the essential skills levels, which are described through the NOC codes. I read company websites and I find out if other centers across Canada have already developed resources that we are allowed to use or adapt. So before the start of the pandemic, quite often I would meet with an employer or a professional in the field, and I would pick their brain and try to identify what is the specific vocabulary or expressions, not slang, but just a specific language and vocabulary that newcomers would need to be able to understand what's going on and be successful in that field. And after gathering this information, I would draft a full curriculum for the 8 to 10 weeks and develop weekly lesson plans that breaks everything down into smaller chunks. And those I will discuss with the instructors. I'll hand them a little package and say, here you go, have fun with this. I meet with them and discuss that in person. But obviously these days, things like that always have to happen virtually. And I leave the paper folders at a specific pickup spot where the teachers can pick them up. In our programs, we've always used EduLink in the past, but that has transitioned to Avenue in August 2020. But since the start of the pandemic, the Avenue Learn IT to Teach project by New Language Solutions has been a key partner to turn our programs online. And you can see the website address there. Avenue is an online learning management system. It is Moodle-based, and New Language Solutions has developed online courseware at all link levels. NLS also offers free training for instructors so that they can learn how to manage their own courses and create their own activities. For our employment training program, that is essential. That's extremely important. We offer language training, but we're not a link program. So the link courseware doesn't always fit with what we need to cover. The slide here shows an example of the variety of activities that we are able to create ourselves. And so the students can complete those activities online. And as you can see, the blue button, the blue B, indicates Big Blue Button, which is an online classroom, and that's also integrated on the platform. Although we're not a link program, we do support PBLA, which is Portfolio-Based Language Learning. We align the curriculum with the Canadian Language Benchmarks and the CLBs. So from a curriculum developer point of view, that means that we teach with the end in mind. I look at what are the competencies that students should be able to achieve at a certain level. And we offer students assessments and skill using tasks that they can take as artifacts to their PBLA portfolio, which transfers to their link class as well. So we choose the real world task goals from workplace situations and prepare students for these communication events. Through the pandemic, we've tried to maintain that. And we found that employment skills have changed as computer literacy has become more and more important in many workplaces. And our learners' resumes also need to reflect that. By taking an online program, they actually learn how to use those online meeting skills and the video conferencing, which is needed, for example, if you have an online job interview. In the past year, we've faced some challenges. We've had to update the employment training curriculum to reflect changes in, for example, nonverbal communication, which is different online than face-to-face. and we had to include more computer literacy skills. We've also had to significantly reduce the curriculum to fit in the reduced program, because an online program has about half of the face-to-face time that a classroom-based program would have. We've developed a lot more online content that students can complete asynchronously, so outside of class time at their own space. But as a result, there's less focus on PBLA skill using and assessment tasks. And finally, as I've mentioned before, it is a challenge to not be working on the same location and not being able to meet with employers and instructors as easily, because all of that needs to happen virtually. So that's it for me. I'd like to hand it over to Sue, who's going to talk a little bit more about the blended programs that we offer.
Thank you, Marika. Yeah, so I teach our clients the language they need to work in a specific sector. I'm also a team lead, the team lead for employment programming. And so I'm going to talk a little bit more about how we transition from classroom to our online classroom. I'll just go into maybe a little bit more in depth into what Marika was sharing. So in transitioning from classrooms to online learning, there was a steep learning curve for teachers and students. With any change an organization goes through, we had to leverage what we had and shift our focus. We were fortunate in that all of our teachers had some training and experience in Avenue. At that time, it was EduLink, but transitioned shortly after we were moved into quarantine. Some more than others. So some of us had more experience than others, but everyone had some training. And all of us were using Avenue to some extent in the class. We also had some team members who were passionate about and excel at creating online learning content. Also, a number of our students had already been introduced to Avenue. Most students did need more practice, and none of our students had used Big Blue Button before. And furthermore, only one team member, one teacher, had experience using Big Blue Button to teach a class. So the rest of the team needed to learn how to use this platform. So how did we approach this issue? Well, first, we had to make some quick decisions to shift some of our focuses. Marika highlighted these as well. One, though, is we had to stop researching and developing new programs. And today, some of those programs are still on hold. We moved sort of all of our energies really into planning and preparations to creating content online on Avenue from our existing programs. Mostly they were paper-based. And so we had to find ways to create those similar activities, but something that could be done online. And we decided to focus on content, including real-world activities, but not necessarily require the PBLA learning artifacts that was an important part of our program. So we focused on the skill building and some skill using, but not so much on assessments with assessment tools and or formal tools even for skill using. We deferred our program delivery for about 1 week. So from when our schools were closed, we only took about 1 week off. This gave the teachers time to reorganize lesson plans, evaluate deliverable content, and start building up activities on Avenue. Teachers also use this time to reach out to students to help them get accounts set up and understand how to use and interact with Avenue. When we launched online classes, We first started with Zoom calls to make the transition to the virtual classroom easier. Most of our students were familiar with Zoom. So initially, teaching partners just took turns teaching their courses. This meant that for a few days, students had just 1 hour classes. And I'll just add here that our full-time courses in the classroom were 6 hours. So we would have one teacher teaching language maybe in the morning, and then a teaching partner would be teaching employment skills, employment training skills. So for 3 hours in the afternoon. So in this transition phase, our students had just 1 hour of class a day to get used to having some online time and doing some work on their own. But this also gave teachers time to troubleshoot with students while continuing to transfer lessons and content to a new format. And I'll just add here too in this that not all of our clients had laptops and had to use cell phones. We had different types of technology and devices that we needed to get familiar with. So it did take quite a bit of troubleshooting. After about 1 week of this, we launched a new schedule and used Big Blue Button as our primary online classroom. And I'll just take a moment here to look at this slide. Some of you may be familiar with Big Blue Button, and it may be new to some. So you could see here, just looking at the main screen, I have my camera on, my video on there, and I prefer to teach with my camera on, even if our students have theirs off. Oftentimes they do have them on. They like to be able to see each other and see me. You can see here a presentation from a PowerPoint. This could be actually used also to share a video within the platform. And over on the far right, there is a small panel of tools with the hand, an arrow, the trash can. And these are wonderful for making Big Blue Button interactive. We can turn on whiteboard tools so students can write, underline words, circle words, match words and definitions, and be very creative. I use this also for games. If I read a definition, they have to move their mouse to the word that we're learning, for example, or the word that they hear, the word that matches. So it creates a great way to just be very interactive, even though we're not in person. We have a chat, a public chat. The students are quite comfortable with that. It takes sometimes a little practice, but it's a nice option, especially for quieter students or if the Wi-Fi connection is not very good one particular day. And there's a space for shared notes. And I found that students really like this in that they can have a discussion in a breakout space, a breakout room, take some notes and then copy those notes and paste them into the main classroom. And we have a collection of notes so that they can share their ideas with the other groups. So it's a great place for them to really learn how to be interactive with reading, writing, listening, and speaking. And as Marika pointed out as well, in order to mitigate meeting fatigue, we did reduce our class time. So we went to 1.5 hour classes. So for our full-time programs, students will have a 1.5 hour class and then a 30-minute break and then another 1.5 hour class online. And then they have about the same amount of time for homework. So we can go to the next slide and we'll take a deeper look into how we transitioned our content delivery. The first change we made was to use a flipped classroom model. In doing this, students can do vocabulary building and other skill building activities for homework that's assigned to be finished before class starts. This puts a lot of the responsibility on the students, but it encourages them to get into the practice of coming to work prepared. We are an employment program, so we do teach workplace culture and workplace expectations. So, and approach that in the classroom sort of in a professional manner. So we do expect students to come ready. So it puts that kind of on them to do some work before class. During class, we take up answers and address questions just directly related to the homework. And you can see here with the example on the right, I have one of my slides from a lesson homework review for lesson 15. And you can see in this example how I take up homework some days. So this is for a multi-level class. This would be from CLB 4 to 8 and higher. And with setting up homework this way, I was able to check pronunciation, get a sense of who was prepared for class, leave some of the responsibility of learning to our adult learners, and have a very interactive class and in a short time. One of the drawbacks of the online classroom is that microphones come on and off and cameras on and off. And at the end of time, that adds up. So doing something like this was very efficient. Okay. Then the bulk of the class time would be spent for application and extension activities. So we would practice using the language, practice using that vocabulary or the ideas that they're learning about. Here we do reading jigsaws, listening jigsaws. We do maybe just reading and writing together. They can write and practice role plays in breakout spaces and then come to the main classroom and present their role plays. And they have small group discussions. And then finally, during the last 10 minutes of class or so, we assign maybe a video or survey or a summary, possibly some type of research like a virtual scavenger hunt to do just for extension and just to finish off maybe those ideas. And then the cycle starts again. So what is the impact of this? As Marika did mention, that we do cover less material, but I also feel that we're making sure students really master what we are able to cover. We also added an extra week to full-time programs, just to give us it's a little more margin to be able to finish anything that we feel needs to be done. And then another way we've supported our switch to online learning is to create weekly packages for students. Based on feedback from students, we decided to assign a blend of online activities with some paper-based activities. We do this in all three aspects of the flipped classroom. Some of the homework is paper-based, but also some of the learning that we do online, students can read from paper. So maybe they're doing a reading jigsaw. They'll have a paper copy of that. So the way we do this is to have a package ready for them every Friday. Some students prefer to have it posted on Avenue and they print it, and others like it printed and they come and pick it up. Students like the option of having activities on paper. And what I see is that they are able to interact with the computer, but then also just look away from the screen from time to time, do some quiet work, and then back to the screen. So that variety is really helpful. Okay, all right, well, the show must go on, as they say. And based on feedback from students and teachers, we knew that we had to have some authentic face-to-face in-person time together. Well, this brings me to the third point that we've done in terms of blending programming. We do continue to offer some virtual and face-to-face classes. So when COVID-19 restrictions allow, we have in-person classes on Fridays. So we have 4 days a week of online learning and 1 day a week we meet. For our lower level classes, which are typically a CLB 3, 4, and a literacy E, we do prefer to have 5 days a week of in-person classes. We can do online learning, but we found we prefer to have them in class together. When we are on site, teachers are required to wear masks or face shields. Students need to wear masks at all times, and classrooms are just measured and marked for spacing and seating, and we find that the compliance rate is very high. Most students are very happy to be there, and so it's easy to have them in class following the rules. We were able to experiment with class sizes online as well. Well, we had as many as 18 students in a class over 2 sections. We found that 8 to 12 students is a comfortable space for us. With more students than that, it's difficult to notice who isn't participating or who isn't finishing homework, and then basically not really acquiring the English that we want them to get. And they don't always ask for help when they need it. Also, online teaching involves just more interaction from teachers than scheduled class time. We need to comment on forum posts and interact online as well. So just having fewer numbers helps us to do that well. Okay, next, we're not sure how all of this transition would affect the outcomes of classes. We can go to the next slide there, Daniel. Thank you. Okay. But I think we've been very pleased with what we're seeing. One thing that we noticed is that group forming is evident. There is a synchronicity online, especially with the smaller classes. With the use of big blue button whiteboard tools, the polling feature, and the breakout rooms, classes have bonded, I think, as they would in our traditional classes. And this has helped the overall delivery of content online immensely. And having said that, I feel the use of the breakout rooms daily for prayer practice and small group discussions is even more beneficial than just having breakout space in a regular classroom. In terms of acquiring language and knowledge of a sector, class sizes influence learning more than having just one CLB level. We do have multi-level CLB classes, and so maybe from a CLB 4 to 8. And so having that smaller class has allowed us to just address the needs of each student. And as I said earlier, in the beginning of the pandemic, our focus was on building up Avenue. As we're settling in and we have more experience and a lot of that is done, we are able now to turn our attention more on developing PBLA learning artifacts. Avenue has an online PBLA portfolio, so we can collect those artifacts online and we can collect them on paper in the physical binders. Finally, we collect client feedback in the form of a Microsoft Forms survey and have a debriefing after every delivered course. So we assess what we did well and what we didn't do so well and what we do differently next time. And we apply that to the next course, not just the course in the same sector, but any sector. So thank you very much. And now I'll pass things over to Daniel.
Thank you, Sue. So I'm going to talk about our SDI project and how this was impacted by COVID. In 2018, the Y received funding from the federal government to carry on a service delivery improvement project to evaluate our full-time employment readiness program called CELT that Sue and Mike explained before. We intended to answer two main questions, which is, will participants attending to CELT receive the same level of language acquisition as participants in LINK? And will participants attending CELT access the labor market faster than participants in LINK? So far, up to that end, CELT has been running for quite some time, but the Y didn't gather evidence on the outcomes of the program. We knew that it was successful by word of mouth, but we needed to gather this evidence in order to share the results of the program and apply for future funding. The program was divided in 3 phases. The first phase was looking to the past, looking at the information of the program that we had up to that date. We also look at the labor market information trends, and we look at the general cultural competency in local employers. Then we designed some data collection instruments and plans so we could carry on with some AV language testing. That means that we had control groups or cohorts from participants in CELT programs and participants in the LINK program. And we did some external language assessments at the beginning and at the end of a period of time, so we can measure that language acquisition. That's on the quantitative side of the research. On the qualitative side of the research, we also did some self-identification surveys, asking clients how they feel about their learning journey. And we carry on some interviews to talk more about their journey to St. John, their education experience, their employment experience. We also try to engage and increase the cultural competency in local employers. And finally, to engage the staff of the program delivery and providing tools for continuous improvement throughout that stay after the research was finished. Right now that it's the last stage, we are analyzing that data, and we are hoping to provide insights into scalability of the project, of the CELT project. We're also doing a feasibility study to be compared as an alternative to LINK. We are providing that evidence of the learnings from right now from our programs. And we finally are building capacity for the Y, specifically for Newcomer Connections, to carry on of this kind of research. Some of the implications and challenges that the pandemic brought to the project, there were 3 main areas. The first one was that all our data collection instruments were paper-based. Back before the pandemic, that allowed us to easily handle privacy and to deliver activities during class time. Turning online increased my time of what I call e-shepherding, that it's kind of like that, pushing students to complete the activities or monitoring students that they would go and actually complete the activities on the platform. So increase more time and commitment on the research team. Another obstacle was related to when the data collection activities happened. Before it was during class time, but with COVID, synchronous time was reduced and limited to face-to-face interactions with instructors. As Sue mentioned, they reduced that time of face-to-face. So there was no space for me to take for clients to participate during their class time in these activities. These had 2 big outcomes, like either the clients were too busy with other responsibilities at home, like surviving the pandemic, as we all know, and they couldn't participate in the research, or because now the face-to-face time was reduced, they could take on more programming. So they would enroll in different programs that would eventually not have time for this research. And finally, well, employers put in a back burner anything non-COVID related. And sadly, cultural competency training was part of these topics that were relegated to a back burner. This stopped the traction that we got from an employer engagement event to continue on our on our commitment to increase that cultural competency level in employers. Some of the learnings, some of the tools that I used was, well, I moved all the data collection instruments online, and I use these 3 tools that you see on the slide. For the language assessment, I split the 4 sections of the language tasks, and the listening, reading, and writing were delivered through the LMS avenue that they already mentioned. I created a specific course for the research, and there I created some quizzes and questionnaires, and I enrolled the clients, and they would be, I would send the link so they knew which specific activities they had to complete. These activities were like asynchronous activities. The only synchronous activity was the speaking language part, the speaking languages task part. And this was carried on a 30-minute Zoom chat. We also had some clients that weren't enrolled in programs because we did some follow-up at the 6-month mark and 12 months after they finished the programs. So for those clients that didn't have access to Avenue, I created some of the surveys on forms, and I also used Zooms for some of the focus groups and interviews. Some of the learnings that are related to the research project and to the SDI project was how we were able to build resilience and how we were able to switch online quickly and keep the momentum with clients. We recognized that leadership was able to take quick, informed decisions that allow us to take the necessary moves to continue the project. Turning online allows us to also use some automatic reports tools or automatic and data analysis tools provided by Microsoft 365 on forms, and that transcribing of information from paper-based to digital was reduced the work effort for the research. Finally, we also learned that the language exit tasks presented different results as clients tend to score higher, which has led to differing theories or hypotheses. But then we know that we definitely have to differentiate the data before COVID and after COVID. And now I'm gonna pass it out to Olive, and thank you very much.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for listening, and thank you, Sue, Daniel, and Marika. My name is Olive. I work with this wonderful team. I oversee the programming at Newcomer Connections. Just like our topic, continuing service through the pandemic, I'm going to bring this home with the leadership overview of what we've been able to do in the past 1 year, transitioning classes and programs and services online. So if you want to turn to the next slide, I want to share with you some of the things that we did that were unique for our center. So the first thing we did when we had to shut down our offices in on March 16th, 2020 was to mobilize all our staff, because we realized that in as much as we are struggling to go through all of this, our clients are also struggling. So what we did, we mobilized all our staff to each call any of the clients that they are in contact with, because we find that with our clients, these were the things that they needed at the most at that time. So like Sue had mentioned, we shut down programming and classes and activities and made sure that we were in contact with our clients. What we did was, throughout that period, the first couple of weeks of the pandemic, we called up to 3,461 clients, either through phone, WhatsApp messages, Facebook, newsletters, any other social media platform that we had access to and our clients could access at the time was the means that we used to connect with them and check in and make sure that they were doing okay. The next thing we did was understanding the importance of online classes and moving online and transitioning everything that we were doing online. We knew we needed more bodies on our team. So we hired a couple more new staff that would support our team and help with classes as well. And all of this was done online because in March, it was shut down. Everything was shut down. You couldn't even go anywhere. So we hired people. We did our onboarding online. We scheduled everything online. And that was really very, very innovative. I remember one of the new hires at the time asking, so how do I get my computer? And how I said, well, I'll drop it off. We did deliveries. We dropped off things, the tools that they needed to do the work that they had to do. We also quickly developed some of the policies that we never had at the time. Work from home policy was one of the things that we quickly developed with the help of the team, so that anybody working from home knew what they needed to have and what they needed to do. Another thing that helped us with managing staff and workload was to have weekly work plans with our staff. Making sure that we hold each other accountable and making sure that everybody knows what they are doing and who is doing what, because working online was new to everybody. So if you're not seeing anybody, you don't even know if anybody is at work or if people are doing what they are supposed to do. So that weekly work plan helped us manage our workload and of course, keep tabs on what's happening, the things that we needed to pay attention to, the important things that our clients needed from us at the time. And then, like Daniel said, cultural competency training, it's key part of our employment training programs, because with employers in the community trying to hire newcomers, some of them do not understand the nuances of working with newcomers. So through our CCT training, we're able to acculturize employers and get them to understand what it means to work with newcomers. And this used to be in class. We used to have either a full day training or half a day, 3-hour training. But with the pandemic, we're not able to do any of that. So we quickly mobilized resources and started developing our CCT to be offered online. So that is now self-paced and independent for any employer. And then that saved time for employers. And instead of having to sit down for 3 straight hours to go through the CCT training, they are able to do it in chunks, and some of their employees are also able to do that. And then our employment support services increased tremendously during the pandemic because, of course, like we know, some people lost their jobs, some people were laid off, some people had reduced hours. So newcomers especially were impacted because of that. And they either need to retrain or get more training or more skills to be able to do another job instead of the job they used to do. So we mobilize a lot of our employment team to give employment support to our newcomers. And in a short period of 2 months, we literally served 82 clients. This number is nothing close to what we used to do in 2019 or before the pandemic. So these were the things that we did focus our attention to, and also making sure that our clients are okay. Like Sue mentioned, some of them didn't have computers, they didn't have devices, but we were able to, somehow with computers we had in class, we loaned them out, we developed programs just so that we are responding to what our clients and staff needed at the time the pandemic broke. And in doing all of this, we learned lessons. We learned a couple of things. So I'm going to talk about the 3 key learnings from this whole, well, we are still learning because the pandemic is still here. But the first key learning from this whole period is technology. Like, our world changed overnight, but it only just amplified the importance and power of technology. And we were lucky enough to have Marika on our team, who had been our EduLink at the time, or now Avenue. She has always been our Avenue mentor, and she had always pushed everybody to get that training. And some of us, got the training, some of us did not. But when the pandemic hit, it was easy for us to transition because most of us had the training, at least the stage 1 training of Avenue. And that helped us a lot to transition our classes online. And of course, for students, it wasn't easy for them, especially those that had not used Avenue before. We started with Zoom, and then those that were comfortable with Avenue were using the big blue button. But the basic things that we needed at the time, we had those, which was Zoom, and some teachers started with even WhatsApp to make sure that they communicate with their clients and make sure that the assignments are done and they attend classes. And then we all moved into that. The The second thing is flexibility and adaptability. So like Daniel, we quickly made decision at the leadership level. We adapted and made sure that the decisions we were making were informed and they helped not just our staff, but also our clients. So the team as well saw this as a positive challenge. It was challenging for those that haven't taught online before. But it was a positive challenge because this is an opportunity to learn new skills. We became flexible in so many ways and so many things. The online platform, means of communication with both staff and clients, like I said, WhatsApp, Teams, emails, Facebook groups and Facebook chat. These were all the things that we used, and newsletter. These were all the things that we used as an avenue to make sure that we are in touch with not just the client, but also our staff. And then, of course, the third one is, even though our world depends on function around technology right now, nothing beats the importance of having team, working together as a team. So in whatever we do, we try as much as possible to put FaceTime to it as well. And like Sue mentioned in some of our classes too, that became evident that even though we are able to function online, there's still that value we get sitting together as a team and working together. So these are the 3 key learnings. And of course, there are so many other learnings that we're getting out of that, but these are the 3 key ones that I wanted to share with us today. So what next? And this is broken into 2 so that we tackle this based on what our clients need next and employers that will serve. Next slide, please, Daniel. So with all our programs moving online right now, before now, we have rural areas around us in St. John that are not able to travel to St. John to either access our services or our programs, in-class programs. But with online platform right now, we are targeting those clients or those newcomers that are in rural areas and making sure that we are reaching out to them and saying, hey, this is now online. Are you able to attend the classes so that you don't lose out on what you need to be successful in the location where you are at? So most of them do not have access to the broad services that we have in St. John. So now this is a great opportunity for everybody to be able to attend the programs online and get the language support and employment support that they need to be successful at their workplace. The second thing is continuous improvement. We do have a quality assurance specialist full-time on our team. Again, with all our programs and services moving almost 90% online, we are continuously evaluating and reevaluating what we do, whether it's programming or services or anything at all, that activities that we use. Our quality assurance specialist makes sure that she sits in the end of each cohort of a program or any classes that we have and help review our either delivery mode, asking clients how they felt about online, and teachers, of course, how they feel about teaching online and all of that. We have done so many surveys. We've done link surveys, we've done employment surveys, we've done even cultural competency surveys. We do all of this because it's important for us to understand where our clients are and where we want to meet them. And then, of course, know how teachers are feeling. We're also reviewing our interactions with employers, especially at this time, to see what they need. And from these surveys, we're able to predict or see the trends and the supports that either clients need or employers need. We see the trends. One of the things we've identified from this continuous improvement exercises that we do regularly is that digital literacy classes are key to any client being successful in any program that they are in. So now we have just developed a full-time digital literacy class that clients go through, whether they are in class or they are yet about to get into class. During orientation period, they are able to work them through not just the basic understanding of technology, but also understanding Avenue or Zoom, because those are the platforms they are going to use to attend classes. So these are the things that we are looking at next and continuously evaluating things with our clients to make sure that we are meeting their needs and we are, of course, doing what our mandate says that we should do. Now, the next slide is what next with our employers. before now, our program, our SOUT program is one of the components of that program is volunteer placement. And we haven't really worked very closely with employers. But during the pandemic or right before the pandemic, we started that through what we call our employment engagement event. But we are working even more closely now with employers in identifying what the needs they have are. Because with the pandemic, some of the needs have changed and some of the skill sets that they need at their workplaces have changed as well. So what we are doing currently is to continuously check in with employers to see how we will partner together. It's not just developing or delivering a program, but getting their input into that and making sure that we're covering all those topics that they need the employers to be not masters in, but at least have a basic understanding of before they come into work. So this year, we are going to host another employer engagement event. Last year, we did that and it was in person. But what we're doing now through this pandemic and right now is that we're going to do this event online and we're going to use a platform called Remo. It's still going to be a roundtable discussion. There's still going to be panelists. There's still going to be that interaction with employers and creating a melting pot for them to also interact with each other, to share in their experiences and their challenges, especially with working with newcomers or hiring newcomers. And of course, based on that, we're going to gather feedback and some talking points from them because we're going to sit down and debrief with our team and look at what the issues they've raised or the challenges they've raised and see how we can incorporate all of that in our programming and making sure that newcomers, when they come out from classes, are with the basic knowledge they have, not just the sector-specific language, but also workplace culture, activities, and event things that they need to know going into work. And from those feedback, we are learning and we are continuously learning that there are some programs that we need to develop. Right now, interpretation, what we call language speakers in our community, the need is high. And identifying that as a need, we are developing curriculum to deliver that program sometimes in summer or in fall. We are also working on online truck driving program because employers have identified this as a key gap for those that are continuously on the road. And we know that truck drivers are on the road and they have need, especially if they are newcomers, to have more language to interact if they are crossing the borders and things like that. So these are the things that we have been working on and seeing, and with those trends and supports that we see happening or that are going to happen, we are continuously evaluating things, knowing that if the pandemic continues, which we know is going to continue till at least 2021, where are the things that we need to know? We know that class sizes right now online needs to be smaller because you need to be effectively communicating with your clients. And what that means is that we are probably going to ask our officer, contract officer, to hire more teachers. So what that means is IRCs is probably going to give us more money to do that so that we reduce the class sizes and hire more people and clients will get the best out of the programming. So these are the few things that we have been doing during this pandemic that has been successful, or I would consider being successful for our team. And this is the end of our presentation. Please send us any questions that you have in the Q&A box, and we would answer them. Thank you. We do have 2 questions here, and you can, if you don't ask the question, then you can always send an email. There's contact information in the last slide. So I'm going to go through the questions, and either I answer it or I direct it to one of my colleagues here, Marika, Sue, or Daniel. So I'm going to start with the first question. I'm going to read the question, and then I will direct it to the person that would have an answer for it, okay? The first question is, do students prefer the synchronous or asynchronous modules? Sue, do you want to take that?
Well, yeah, what I have to say is I would tend toward the synchronous modules, but both work. And that what I found is as we encourage students and train students in the asynchronous model, they do get a rhythm and come to class prepared and ready. And then they're really engaged in the learning because it's reduced time as well. So it is some transition. And as you know, we have said as well that there's just nothing like, meeting, face to face. And so in that sense, there's a comfort and a familiarity that they like to go back to in the synchronous model. So yeah, I'm not sure quite if that answers the question, but that's our experience anyway with the both. And one thing too that I'll add as well is, of course, some students are more comfortable with the asynchronous model. Maybe there's independent learners and they like to have that time, or they have different demands on their schedules. And so I've had students that just would do all their week's work of homework on the weekend because that's a window of opportunity that they had. So they asked for everything ahead of time, and then they could come into class, prepared, because they couldn't just do a little bit every day.
Maybe I can comment on that as well.
Yeah.
I think what they prefer is the blend, to have that face-to-face class time, but then also have the opportunity to do extra work or review at their own time that suits them. Because some people have maybe children home that are learning from home for their own school, right? Or they want to do all of their work before 3 o'clock, before the younger kids come back from school, doing homework on the weekend, things like that, what you mentioned, Sue. It's really interesting to see notifications coming in of when people have posted to a forum, and it's like all times of day. Sometimes it's 12 o'clock at night, and I'm thinking, what are you doing in the middle of the night? But that's when they prefer to do their homework. And I think it's the combination that people really enjoy.
Thank you, Sue and Daniel. I'm going to read the next question. Who do you find has the most difficulty with the transition to online? I think I can take a stab on that. Well, it's twofold. We do have staff and, of course, students. And for students, it's broken down into, so for our students, those with, I will just say categorically, our literacy students had the most difficulty with transitioning online because like they are literacy students. So some of them do not even have, they may not have had computers, and they are here and now they have to, even though some of them have phones and they're able to, operate their phones, when it comes to laptop and, navigating some of the classroom rooms and chats and all of that, it was difficult for them to do all of that. So for our students, I would say our literacy students had the most difficulty transitioning online. And then when it comes to staff, some teachers may not have used online classrooms or platforms before, and now they have to do that. So some of our staff had difficulty transitioning online, not just for teachers or instructors, also for staff that are also doing some other services or back-end work. People like to interact with other people in the office. And now that we're all at home working from home, it was difficult for a lot of people. It's still very difficult for a lot of people that we're transitioning in and out of different recovery phases in our province. When we will go back to yellow, you see people literally excited to go back to the office because that's where they function better. So there are levels of difficulty depending on what you're looking at, but for our clients, it was mostly our literacy students. Okay. I'm going to read the third question. It says, what about your staff? Have they had difficulty transitioning? Again, yes. A lot of people had difficulty transitioning online because that's not what they know. They have always operated in person, and all of a sudden we're moving things online within 1 week. That was difficult and challenging, and a lot of people needed more support than others. And what we did was becoming more flexible and becoming more supportive of our team, because if our team is not supported and we don't have what it takes to deliver classes online, our clients are going to be missing out on important learning outcomes that they need to have. So yes, staff had difficulties, but what we did was giving people time to transition and to get used to the fact that we are all online now and working through all of that. Some people are still finding it challenging. Some people do not actually want to come into the office because they are really afraid of the pandemic, of the virus. So what we do every time is to check in and make sure that they are okay. And if there is any way we can minimize or limit them coming into the office or into the classrooms, we do that. But if they have to come into class or classroom, depending on the level of class or language level that we're teaching, we make sure that we have all the tools and protocols in place, making sure that they feel safe coming into the office or into the classroom to teach students.
Yeah, and if I could speak just briefly to the support that Avenue is also offering, the Learn IT to Teach project. As I mentioned, they offer free training. And even though most of the training is online and self-paced for the instructors, every instructor is assigned a mentor that they can reach out to. And there's a live platform where you can ask your questions as well. And so I know that the mentors have been really busy during the pandemic, just supporting instructors with transitioning to Avenue and supporting them in learning how to use the platform. But that support has been great. And they've done lots of webinars that taught people how to use Big Blue Button and things like that. And it's been really, it's been a process. Now with transitioning online for different language levels, we're now seeing that we've done a lot of programs online that were at a CLB 5+ level. And so you get used to it, you know what students are able to do online. And you think, okay, I've mastered this. But recently we've started with some lower level programs for CLB 3, 4, 5, and you realize as a curriculum developer and as an instructor, you completely have to rethink what you're doing, because what works online with CLB 5, 6 students does not work online with CLB 3, 4 students. So the transition, I feel, is still not complete because we're still learning and we're still figuring things out.
Yeah, thank you, Marika, for adding that. That's completely true. If you wish to send us notes or questions later on, that's my email and my phone number on the screen. You can do that as well later on if you wish to. Thank you, everyone that has participated in this. We are grateful and thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.